everybody, Ryan Medora here, and welcome to a bass lesson about gear, which is, frankly, half the fun of playing an instrument is getting cool gear. But we're going to talk about that beginner bass that you get, and then kind of how that evolves in your musical life and what to do when you become kind of an intermediate to advanced player, where maybe you have a few different pieces of gear that you've acquired. So if you dig this channel, please subscribe, head over to my Patreon page to find a bunch of other goodies. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the beginner gear that I started with, which happens to be this bass. This is the very first bass that young Ryan got, and it was very fortuitous that I went to a music store and got the starter bass pack. You know, this is a Fender Squier starter pack that came with the bass, a cable, a small amplifier, a strap, a gig bag, and an instructional video, which I'm sure is now online now. But the cool thing is I had everything that I needed so that when I got home from the music store, I was just able to like put it all together and start playing. So because this is an electric instrument, you need a few things. You know, you need to be able to have an amp and a cable and plug it in and have it be all good and have a gig bag to transport it in. So when you get started here, just make sure you have all the accoutrement. That's really important for beginning. The other thing that I would recommend is having a tuner and a metronome. And these days you can get app versions of things, but having a standard tuner that's either like a clip-on or a tuner and pedal, that's really helpful. And one thing about the pedal thing is like you don't need to go overboard. You don't need to start working on like getting compressors and overdrives and things like that. Spend the early days of the instrument learning how to play, building technique, understanding some theory, just getting the instrument under your fingers rather than worrying about all the other crazy gear you need to get right off the bat. The other thing to know is that like over time, your needs as a player will change and you can kind of modify this beginner instrument. But the most important thing that you can do when you first get it is get it set up, because a lot of these basses, the entry-level basses right out of the box, you know, they haven't lived a full life yet. They're shifting. They're made out of wood. In transport, things change. Climates are different. And so basses are going to change. The neck may warp. And so taking it to a local store or a tech to have somebody set it up is a crucial thing to do at the onset. Because, you know, the action of the bass can be something that's a barrier. I know a lot of people kind of pick up the instrument and they say, oh man, it's so hard to hold down the strings and things like that. Some of that might be the player, but a lot of it might be just the action of the instrument. And so make sure that you get it set up so that at least, you know, it's a playable version of the instrument. Maybe the intonation needs to be adjusted by the bridge, or maybe the nut is a little wonky, but taking it to somebody or even doing it yourself if you feel comfortable with that is a really important thing to do to make the bass playable at the beginning of your bass journey. So once you've been playing it for a while and you're like, man, I think I'm going to upgrade, maybe get another bass, I would say it's kind of cool to hold on to your first instrument because of a couple of things. One, there's that sentimental value. I know for me, whenever I pick up the bass that I began with, I kind of have all these memories that flood back of, you know, practicing different scale techniques. I remember very clearly going to see the Standing in the Shadows of Motown video and then coming home and learning Bernadette on this bass. So for sentimental reasons, it's kind of cool to have that. It's also a great tool to be able to like mod the bass as you move forward or experiment with it. You know, if you're somebody that has been playing with round wound strings and you want to have a bass to put flat ones on, go for it. That's what I did with this bass. It started with rounds and now it's got flat wounds on it. It's got a different nut. You can kind of change out different things about it. You know, putting on a different bridge or different tuners is a great thing to do. And perhaps the most valuable thing that you can do to change the instrument is upgrade the pickups. So usually with some of these more entry-level instruments, you know, the electronics might be okay, but doing a little bit of a soup up is probably a great thing to do. With this instrument, I ended up putting a set of Aguilar Hot P pickups in it and flat wounds. So it's kind of this fun little like gnarly flat wound string bass that can be great for rock and roll stuff. It's great for soul, R&B, and Motown, and that's kind of the universe that this gets to live in now. So just know that over time, you know, that entry level instrument that you got can be a versatile piece in your collection if you use it to either modify it and make it be something that punches above its weight, or something that you can kind of experiment with different strings and kind of feel comfortable making tweaks on it because it may not be your like number one instrument that you play all the time. Having kind of like a backup or just like an experimental piece is a really cool thing. So as you're getting started on this bass journey, just keep those things in mind. Know that like when you begin on the instrument, you need quite a few things just to get going, and spend your time working on, the practicing of the instrument, ear training, learning songs, learning some of the theory. Don't get too bogged down by all the other gear stuff, all the other flashiness. And then over time, as you start to embrace everything that the gear world has to offer, you can use that instrument as something that you can kind of play with and experiment with and turn into something that maybe seems a little bit cooler than the instrument that you started with. So I hope you dug this and that it provides some benefit to you. Happy practicing, everybody. Keep it groovy.